Hello, everyone. My name is Professor Dr. Tajuddin, and I'm here to actually talk about the examples of design thesis that has been completed. In the past, this one is on mostly the UTM project, of which I had supervised as a head panel. And if we were to look at some of the topics, here we have the first example of what is called the economic sustainable mosque. Now, what is the thesis here? The thesis here is about the mosque having to place itself in the idea that it would be self-sustainable, meaning it would not just depend on any donation per se, as well as any grants from any institutions or government body. Now, why is this important? This is important because the mosque becomes then an independent entity that is not being controlled by any political party or any institutions that has certain vested interest. At the moment, all mosques in Malaysia are controlled by the institution of JAKIM or the state institutions of Islam. But in the Islamic reform system or the Islamic reform philosophy, the mosque should be independent by itself, because then it becomes an agent of social change. And so this is something that is important in order to preserve the idea of Islam as a way of life, as well as a contribution to society in the larger perspective. So we look at this thesis. We can see here that the introduction board, you can look at it in further detail, and we can see that it has two aspects of it. One is the explanation of the thesis in terms of its objective, and also its solution to the objective that was set out. This is very important. All theses must have an objective that is achievable through the design. The objectives cannot be something that is very vague in relation to design. So we will see how this thesis had argued that this is the solution to the set problem. Secondly, we must see that the complexity, meaning the difficulty as well as the scale of the site, in order for you to decide that this is a good thesis, to show off, as I said, your skill and your ability to design. It's no good just taking a very easy site on a very easy scale to the point that it is not worthy of a 1-year project, as well as not worthy for someone to say or to look at the design that you have put up. So we have the normal boards in which the basic requirement of floor plans, brief formulation, this must be evident in the thesis boards, and it must be clearly drawn, and no mistake must be done in terms of its the floor plan. So here I will just go through very quickly the basic drawings, as well as some of the aspects of perspectives and the views of the building, to show off what is the interesting aspect about this thesis. I'll come back to the boards later on to actually highlight some of the views about how this is, some of it is a solution to the problem stated. Here we see the water distribution, wastewater. These are all technical aspects which also must be integrated into the design or into the presentation of the board, because this is a graduating project. And much of this need to be shown for the Part 2 requirement, and the construction details must not be any mistake there, because it's not that difficult to do, because this is not something of innovation. It is just something of a practice. but it must be shown, and people must understand that you could actually do this. Now, the perspective drawings are very important to show the solution, not just to show what it looks like. And this is something that needs to be emphasized to the students, because some of them just show exterior perspective, interior perspective, but what is it? What is it in the interior perspective? What is it in the exterior perspective that is showing it to be a solution to the stated problem? So you cannot just put up a perspective simply for the sake of a perspective. So if we were to look at the thesis objective, you can go one by one. What is the objective about having the mosque to be sustainable economically? Now, one problem of the mosque is the issue that it cannot make money like any other entity. But certainly it is able to make some money through the idea of those activities that is more in line with the value system of Islam. You cannot just be putting any kind of business entity or business spaces to have it for it to just make money. And so some of these activities, like having a hotel or having a bazaar for rental, as well as sometimes the billboard, like to put up signs for products as well as events, and there can also be event management in that place. There is also the objective of making it into a community building for Muslim as well as non-Muslim. Now, this again is a very complex issue, because many Muslims feel that the mosque is only for Muslims alone. So there is again the complexity of the problem, because if you're going to make it into a business entity, then you will have to expect the Muslims and the non-Muslims to come. But where are the line that separates? This is the area that you can come in, but this is not the area that they should be going into. And so there's also the privacy of prayer as well as the other activity. All this come into the thesis to make it a very interesting one. The mosque is also a welfare center and humanistic consideration, because that is the spirit of the mosque, to help also the homeless and the poor. So how does that then come into conflict with the business entity as well as the entity of what we say the religious entity? So many mosques which are built for 400 million ringgit, they just show off their beautiful forms, incredible carvings, but then they are useless in terms of how do you help the poor? How does the homeless sleep? And the homeless here does not necessarily mean the Muslim. It could also be non-Muslim to be helped. Now, this certainly is again another controversial issue, but it needs to be argued properly. So the idea of a modern language of the mosque is also one of the issues, where in order to make it into a business welfare entity, it has to go away from the temple notion of the mosque. And this is something that if we look at the students' work, then you can see the bazaar coming up that can be open or closed at a certain time. We can see also some of the use in terms of the signboards or the billboards that has been placed there. So we can see also in this very interesting perspective that doesn't have any caption, the suasana or the atmosphere that is in this mosque. And certainly we can see that the mosque no longer take on the traditional form of the domes and the arches, and it looks more like a marketplace, a mall, and that becomes an issue, where some people would say, well, we want a very peaceful kind of a mosque, but is that certainly the way? If we were to look at the Masjid al-Haram, you can see loads and loads of people. What is so peaceful about that? When you see people coming in there and there, some having a picnic outside of the Masjidil Haram to wait for the prayers, and you have see children running around here and there. And the difference is that the Masjid Haram is only for Muslims. It cannot be for non-Muslim, but the masjid or the mosque in the community of Malaysia can be open to all. And that is the idea of what the mosque is in terms of it being a center for the community. And here the calculations about how much is the possible earnings of the mosque needs to be calculated and needs to be shown. So this is something that needs to be highlighted as well as shown, and the thesis becomes what is known as something that contributes to a different typology or a different design idea, as well as it being complex enough to show off the skills and ability of the student in terms of making it a good thesis.